Hello, thank you all for being here with us. I'm Edward Ruchalski.
I'm Elizabeth Twiddy.
I would like to thank some of my colleagues at Moyne College, Associate Provost Mary Collins, the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Jim Hannon, the Director of the Campus Ministry, Tom Ondino, Todd and Brett at Hoban Studios, and the VPA faculty and staff, especially Corel Blakely, Joel McKissick, and the Assistant Director of Music, Greg Giovannini.
I have a couple of dedications I'd like to make for this concert. One for the past and one for the future. For the past, I'd like to dedicate this concert to my friend, Jerry Lambert, whom we lost this summer. And for the future, I'd like to dedicate this concert to my niece, Nell Ada Twiddy Rosenblum. We love you, we miss you, we're rooting for you. Here's to you, Nell Bell. So I would like to say a little bit about what's been on my mind and what these poems really address. I've been thinking about this pandemic we're all living through, and also about our democracy here in the United States. And these two things make me think about the connections between animal, including human biology, which also includes the health of our planet, and time, and our relationships with one another, including the politics of this moment and our democracy. We're all living through an incredibly intense, fraught, painful time, and I'm seeking to express some of this, and I try to offer some solace in these poems. So that's my hope. I want to say thank you to all of the healthcare workers and to so many others sacrificing for everyone else every day. We are so grateful. Thank you. Well, we've had a lot of fun working together to make these songs.
Yes, we have, and it's been a joy to compose them for these specific performers.
We're honored to have them performed by Julia, Danan, and Sar. We can't wait for you to experience the songs.
Hope you all enjoy.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Twiddy. I wrote the poems that you're going to be hearing sung in our concert. I thought it would be a good idea for me to read the poems to you before you hear them sung, because sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to discern the precise words when you encounter them for the first time in song. So I'm hoping that your hearing them this way from me will help you as you listen to the concert. Here is set 1. Time unspooled. Time unspooled and escaped me entirely. I long to eavesdrop on the conversations of clocks. Cricket song. Cricket calls out from the basement, song for all these restless clocks. Restlessness unfixed by memories of kisses or of aloneness. The clocks long for something, this song in the darkness, song of the cricket, spells it out. What is it? The clocks point to questions. Song of the cricket, sing to all these restless clocks. Grass clock, long clock. Time passes, time. Spools out, rests on faces of pools. Trains run out their windows, dragonflies circle. Grasses wave in winds. So much movement. So much stays. Mostly I long for you. Sleep clocks. Over the blue hills, the clocks wait for their time to sleep. There is a lake in the valley, so still it reflects the stars scattered like rice tossed over its black top. There, in the face of the lake, the stars quiver when a boy tosses a stone from the bank. For a moment, the stars form numbers, all the clocks in the universe, measuring with the numbers on their faces, gather there in the lake to rest.
Time unspooled and escaped me entirely. I long to eavesdrop on the conversations of clocks. their windows, dragonflies circle, grasses wave in winds. So much
Set 2. Disappearing altogether is no longer so simple. That hummingbird droning in your ear is a drone, and there, over there, is a bird on a telephone wire. Birds fly through the wireless too. Even the wind shows up now. We look from darkened windows to see the air all clouded with snow, making wind currents visible. I myself am pixelated these days. The closest I get to hidden is the feeling of my particles frittering apart, flying off at my edges. A disk of rice paper dissolving on my tongue. The bees. The bees at midnight, the moonlight lighted, gentle workers, with black eyes, with heavy bodies, with short lives, and you watching in your mind, and depression's wet coat hanging on, its cold mouth pressing on your eyes. Personal demon. It's just an ordinary demon, roughly demon-sized. It trots along ahead of me on walks down the sidewalk, its head passing through the same hoops of air as other heads, as my head, sharing the same spaces at slightly different times. In the kitchen, it's partial to lemon. It dearly loves lemon. When I make tea, it asks always, please, for a squeeze of lemon, which I usually deny. Poor demon. Still, often, it gets its way. Take you, for instance. You're so good. You're practically spun from sugar. We both wanted you. Lonely Goat Marionette Show. Hie thee hence, puppet, or I shall pull thy strings. Oh, that face floats up like a balloon that I summarily pop again and again with my pins of vigilant diligence. I may be feeling misanthropic, but my kitchen is spotless. Scatter my crumbs for sleep. Let me gather some crumbs of sleep, for I am starved for sleep. Inside the dream that would come, a lone yellow flower shudders in wind at the top of a green hill. Oh, lady E, lady O, E, oh, lady O, lady E, O.
visible. I myself am pixelated these days. The closest I get to hidden is the feeling of my particles frittering apart, flying off at my edges. I discover paper dissolving on my tongue. Gentle workers with black eyes, with heavy bodies, with short lives, and watching in your mind, and depression's waistcoat hanging on, its cold mouth pressing on your eyes. Your eyes. kitchen it's partial to lemon. It dearly loves lemon. When I make tea, it asks always, please, for a squeeze of lemon, which I usually deny. Poor demon. Poor demon. Still, often it gets its way. Take you, for instance, you're so good, you're practically spun from sugar. We both want in you. Hie thee hence, puppet, or I shall pull thy strings. Oh, that face floats up like a balloon, that I summarily pop again and again with my pins of vigilant diligence. I may be feeling misanthropic, but my kitchen is spotless. Scatter my crumbs for sleep. Let me gather
I wanted to just set the rhythms, especially in the inflections, as closely as I could, to the spoken word. So that's pretty much how it worked. The poems were already done. And then I would sit and let Beth read them over and over. I would take notes. I'd go away and write music, come back, make sure she was happy with the music, and it would go back and forth like that. Sometimes it was better when she was happy with the music, and sometimes she wasn't, and I'd march upstairs kind of mad and adjust and rewrite. But most of the time it worked fine. So a lot of it was this talking about her work and trying to get that right.
I would say there was a lot of back and forth. There was a lot of, there was a lot of reading, talking, listening, reading again, talking, listening. And one of the things that was key in our dialogue was getting some clarity about things that would inform the music. So Ed would ask me questions about emotions, moods, what was my intention here, what was my feeling there, what were my thoughts here and there, just to inform those choices that would be more musical.
Great.
That answers the question. The first.
Next, let's see, we have a question. How did you approach composing each setting? Did any meaning and or imagery invoked by the poems inform how they sound musically, and if so, how? So that's a little bit what you were just alluding to.
Yeah, it was basically, I mean, I kept checking in with Beth because there were a few songs that I started without checking in, and I would get things totally wrong, So I would.
Yes, he did.
So I'd have to use the music for something else. But so I learned right away, check in with Beth, because, I wanted to please her. I've set up, it's easy if you it's easier to set works by dead people because then they can't complain, So, but when I really wanted to please her, and I wanted to be true to the poems and not get the emotions wrong or the moods wrong.
I would say that I really appreciate it. And this is genuine. This isn't just, kissing his patootie, but I'm trying to keep my language clean here. But I was impressed with his ability to hear my feedback and make adjustments. I was really grateful for that.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, for me, it was mostly about us working together and not having. What's always bothered me is we often don't even know who the poets or the librettists are in pieces of music, and to me it's like 50%, or it's even more, right? If the words didn't exist, the music isn't even possible. So.
And I think something we're going to have to adjust to as we continue this project, which we intend to, is it's a trick to work with someone you're married to, right? It's a trick to have a relationship of one kind and a relationship of another kind inside the same package. So it's something that, we're adjusting to.
How long did it take to create?
Ooh, poems.
Well, my writing process is a lengthy one, and it involves a lot of revision. So I would say, honestly, for those poems, 5 years. I mean, over the course of many years, I go back and I go back. I'm a kind of a little bit of an annoying perfectionist in some ways, and so I am. So a long time for me.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
I write in the morning and usually get most of a song done in one morning, and then make adjustments later. I like to it is a good idea to write a lot and then get away from it for a week or two and come back, but I'm pretty quick. So
a long time for the poems, and then you just throw it all together. No, it is interesting. I think the process for creating from person to person, some people do take a while to get really what they want to say, and then other times it can be just it's right there on the page for you.
Yeah, one of the songs took me a couple of weeks. Like you get, sometimes something you get like a roadblock or something, and but.
Right. Ed, did you know who would be performing, and did that influence your writing style and process?
Yes, I didn't begin to write until I talked to the performers. In fact, it started, Danan and I talked about it a couple of years ago about the possibility of doing something like this. And I mentioned, and I can't remember the story, but Danan had been playing together. So he was a pick, and both of them have performed my music before, and I love them. And then what happened is Julia came to Moyne, and I heard her, and I mentioned, and Danan had told, I think Danan introduced us, but in talking to Danan about Julia's voice, it became kind of essential that she was a part of it too, and Danan was all for it. So it's for the full length concert, we're going to have some duets, by the way. So I've got a couple written, and we have to go and revisit that. But this originally was going to be live in the chapel before COVID. So
we get just a preview of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I am so blown away by both Julia and Danan's singing and Sar's playing. So I know we're going to have them join us in a few minutes here, but I just wanted to say that I think we're completely honored by their voices. They're really wonderful.
Beth, did you make any revisions, even small ones, to the poems to open them up in some ways to Ed's ideas for the music?
That's something we have to work on. No. Right? Absolutely not.
Nope, the poems are the poems, and there they remain. Once they're finished, and that's that.
It's kind of our agreement right now. Yeah. So.
Ed, who are your favorite composers, both in the past and relatively recent?
Oh my goodness. Living composer, Arvo Pärt. We listened to tons of Mozart. We listened to Bach.
Early music is my favorite.
Really early music. Yeah, we're all over the map. Right now there's Haydn playing in the other room. A lot of classical. But
12th century, 13th century, 14th century. That's my area. That's what I listen to sort of daily.
Yes. So yeah, we're everything. But I would say while writing these songs, to be more, because I left out the biggest one, while before preparing to write these songs and while writing them, lots of Schubert. I'm a big Schubert fan. So
Winterreise, yep.
Yeah. So
Winterreise.
if I can write anything half as good as Schubert, I'm going to be okay.
And Beth, same to you about poets that have influenced you.
Oh, wow. Emily Dickinson, Elizabeth Bishop are probably my two big ones. Love Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer, medieval poet. Shakespeare's okay. But no, I mean, contemporary poets, Elizabeth Bishop and Emily Dickinson, and I would add Louise Glück, who just won the Nobel Prize for Literature. Louise Glück was one of the very first poets whose work I fell in love with when I first started studying, so I would add her to the list.
Great. A question about the poems. If the two clocks were to have a conversation, what would they talk about?
Good question. I'm not answering it.
I'm glad I write the music. They might talk about time.
Ed, do you write for many instruments and design and build your own? Why did you decide on piano for this?
Because I wanted to write some songs in the tradition of art song. I had never done that before. The first songs I wrote when I was a college student were, because of the opportunity, were for soprano with a small ensemble. And then along the way, a lot of my pieces are short songs. I haven't written many, but maybe a handful or a half a dozen in 10 years for different groups. So I really wanted to start writing songs in the traditional way of just one singer, or maybe two sometimes, and piano. Why not? It's it's a good thing to do.
Is this your first professional collaboration together?
No,
No, we've done songs, but yeah.
go ahead.
We've done a couple other songs that have been performed at Moyne. April Heat, Baptism was
Performed at Linda Lemira's inauguration ceremony.
yeah. So we've done a few, but nothing big. We wanted to do something, more than one song.
The End of Sleep was
Oh,
done
yeah.
for SATB choir. Which was set by Ed, was featured in a film.
That's right. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is
So the chamber singers sang for us. So yeah, at Moyne.
They did such a good job. The chamber singers under Jocelyn Rausch, they did a beautiful job.
Beth, do you ever write to the music that Ed has composed?
Okay, here's what I would say. I would say, well, no, let's be fair. I would say that I am definitely influenced by Ed's music. I listen to Ed's music. It informs my thoughts. It informs my moods, and it affects my poems. So yes, I am influenced by Ed's work. I think to that earlier question, a few questions ago, am I open to changing the poems based on the music? I'm a flexible collaborator in general, working in whatever area I'm working in at the time. But in the case of having written a piece and having it set musically, I am not unique. In fact, I think there isn't anyone that I'm aware of who is a writer who changes his or her words according to, poetry, having poems set, that is, it's not the same. If you're talking about lyrics and poems are not the same thing. If you're working in a lyrical way and you're writing a song, of course you need to be open that way. But if you're writing a poem and you're having your poem set, you write your poem and then the composer has to work with that.
Okay.
If that makes sense. I just wanted to clarify that from earlier.
No, I think it does. What made you guys take a more minimalistic approach to the writing of the music as opposed to something more melodic and or romantic?
Oh, it's just my voice. I just kind of, I don't really have a choice. I just try to write what I hear and not worry about it. I just try to make it strong, and wherever you want to put it is fine with me. But I don't think you're right. It's not romantic. I don't feel it's quite minimal either, but
Okay. We'll take a couple more of these questions and we'll bring in, we'll add in some of the performers here. We have, tell us more about the performers. I'll answer this one. They are not students. So Julia is on faculty. She is the director of the Chamber Singers and teaches voice lessons with us. Danan used to be a faculty member at Moyne, teaching voice lessons, chamber singers, and singers. And then I will let you talk about Sar. I know he's a professional pianist. It plays all over the place, but do you want to add anything for that?
He teaches at Hamilton College. And when Danan, and when they get on, maybe Danan can say more too. He's just an outstanding pianist. He plays a lot for a lot of people, and he's played some of my music with the Society for New Music. So really reliable, awesome pianist.
What did you learn about one another through your collaboration?
I don't know if we.
That's a personal question.
I think I was just going to say, I think we learned that we worked it went pretty smoothly. That's probably it.
What did we learn about each other? Yeah, I learned that Ed is capable of being flexible, and and I think we learned that. I think we learned something about patience. I think we learned something about flexibility and openness. I think we learned something about, I think this is a big one, listening.
Yeah.
Listening to each other, listening to the words, listening to the music, and listening to each other's feelings and thoughts about those things.
Yeah.
All very important things in collaborative events.
Yeah. We did get better as the process went on, so that was a good thing. Yeah.
What do you each do if you encounter writer's block?
Well, okay, I'm someone who really has learned about myself that I thrive in variety. I'm a variety person. And so I like to write, but I also like to cook. I like to sing. I like to play the guitar and the piano and the flute. I like to draw. I like doing science. So what helps me is having my fingers in several pots and mixing it up. And whenever I get stuck in one pot, I switch to the other one for a little while. And it helps. Sometimes it helps. One thing helps to jog something loose in my brain about another thing.
Mhm.
So that's how I manage it.
Knock on wood, I haven't had writer's block, so I just shift into
No, he doesn't have
Yeah.
writer's block.
Great.
yeah, I just shift to another project if I'm stuck on one and give it a little time. But luckily, I've been, able to continue working.
That's another way in which we're opposites. Ed is really on music sound. That's what he does. He does music, he does sound, and that's what he does. And I just really admire that. And I am the opposite. I'm someone who really thrives in multitudes.
I assume the Lonely Goat Marionette Show was inspired by that scene from The Sound of Music. Can you talk about that?
Yay! Yes, it was inspired by the scene from The Sound of Music. So everybody knows that scene from The Sound of Music where Maria, her name? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I almost couldn't remember her name. So it's this great scene where, they're doing puppets and they're on stage and you see the marionettes and you see the strings and, they're having some trouble and, they're trying to figure out what to do. And, it's sort of like life. It's sort of messy and everybody's embarrassed and things are going wrong. And so I sort of use that sort of imagery as the backdrop for the poem. And I'm using it to speak, at least in part, about some of the difficulties that people face as female people. So I don't really feel like explaining the whole thing, but yes, it is informed by the imagery in that scene when they're performing that little marionette show. Yeah.
Great. And then I'm going to invite the performers and Todd up. And as we're doing that, we have one last question here. When do you know that something works?
I don't know. I think we just listen. We both listen and we listen to each other. And for me, it's really clear when it works. I mean, I hear it. I'm like, yes, that's it. That's it.
Yeah, I kind of wait for Beth to say that, then I'm fine. I mean, for these songs, but sometimes you don't know. There's times I've written a piece and haven't realized that I was done writing it weeks ago, and you just go too far, and it's just constant reflection. It's part of that whole process. Write, get away from it, reflect, go back and forth, and trust your instincts.
Great. So now at this time, if you want to input questions for our sound engineer or for any of the performers, or more for Beth and Ed, please feel free to do so.
Hi, everyone. Julia and Danan, you sound amazing. We need to unmute them.
Yeah, he will.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
We had a lot of comments about how wonderful and how great you all sounded. So I want to say thank you again for participating with us. All right, our first question. How much freedom did the performers have in interpreting the poems and the music?
All of it, pretty much.
Yeah, we had a rehearsal session where both Beth and Ed were listening in via a Zoom call, and they seemed very they seemed to be very pleased with the interpretation that both Julia and I were giving, and we were certainly both open to whatever they had to add, but they gave us a wide berth of range, so that was really nice. It's really nice to be able to do that as a performer.
Did you get any context ahead of time when you got the music, or did you get the music, interpret and then see if going along the lines that they wanted it?
We didn't have too much direction when we got it, but to be honest, there's a lot of direction in the music.
It's all there.
Yeah, it's really unique to be able to sing pieces that the composer and the poet were talking to each other, and that it's a very well-informed setting, right? But I remember when I first worked with Sar going through this, I was talking about one of the things I was dealing with technically and as an interpreter of like, there's a lot of rests that make what I would traditionally make a giant line. I had to actively make it a little bit choppier than I as an opera singer would choose to do it. So knowing that he just wrote these for his wife, right, set her poems, that he's reflecting the way she reads them. That he has put those in, because no composer's just going to throw in rest because they like how they look. Those are intentional. So I felt like, we were left to interpret these pieces, but they were so just informed with how they were written that I didn't feel like I had a ton of questions per se.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Not a lot of guesswork.
No, not too much.
Did either of you or any of you have a favorite song that you had? And it could be either one of your, like if it wasn't your set, Julia or Danan.
Ooh, that's...
Yeah, so
Bees.
the bees. Mine is the bees also.
And I love the grass clock, but also the sleep clock.
That's my second.
Oh,
Beautiful.
And I'm gonna throw that.
I'm sorry.
You and Beth, Ed, did either of you have a favorite of the sets that we had tonight?
Can I ask a question? Danan, did you say that your favorite was the bees?
Yes.
Okay, and Julia, you said yours was grass clock, long clock, and then sleep clocks.
Yeah, between the sleep and the grass, I like them for different reasons, but those are my two favorite for sure.
Okay, nice to know. And Sarah, what about you?
Bees and sleep clocks.
Okay.
How about you, Todd?
I'm in on the bees. I like that one myself a lot. That was my favorite.
Oh.
There's something hypnotic about a rhythm in 7.
Ah,
And the beautiful melodic line and the gorgeous words. I mean, it's just, and I love bees. It's wonderful to hear them described as gentle workers. I think that's so evocative. It's wonderful.
I was hoping for that to double as an ode to bees that pollinate flowers and plants, and an ode to the essential workers who are working right now on our behalves.
Wonderful.
As a gardener, I really appreciate bees. I actually leave half my yard as wildflowers for them.
whoa.
Cool.
All right,
We're
so
doing that more every year. Go ahead, Greg, sorry.
our next question, how did the performers decide what emotions they wanted to convey while performing and how they would convey them? Was it a group effort?
I took my cue from the words, from the poetry, and then the line of the music, and that's pretty much where it all comes from in any piece. And these were, like Julia said before, very well set out for us to interpret them in a very clear way. How about you, Julia?
Totally agree. I mean, if there was any question with how you would interpret perhaps the poetry, it was there in the music.
Mm-hmm.
So between the two, it seemed, I mean, unless they're just being very nice and they really have other ideas they want to give us, it felt really easy to express these the way that it seemed they were intended. Sometimes you come in, you work on an art song that leaves you with more questions in terms of even simple things like dynamics. And in this, if Ed didn't write in the dynamic, it felt like it was obvious by the way that the harmony was voiced, or even something as simple as rhythm can help clarify things like dynamics.
Bravo to Ed for actually writing so clearly that way. And Elizabeth also for setting your poetry in a logical way that works with the flow.
Thank you.
Yay! Well, we all are hoping to work together going forward, and hopefully we'll all be recording.
I hope so too.
Todd,
We'd love for you all to be involved in that.
Todd, we've got a question for you. How did you approach mixing and producing this? Does a smaller instrumentation equate to an easier or less complex job?
Oh boy, you see, that's kind of a complicated question. I'm going to make it as simple as possible. We happen to be in the chapel. So those of you that have performed in the chapel, have been to a concert in the chapel, it is just a delightful space. And it has its own sound, its own reverberation. So we decided going in not to sweeten, not to add any digital reverb, anything like that. It was all about placing the microphones. So with a small ensemble, the choices are pretty limited. We had 3 microphones that we set in appropriate places and recorded all those tracks and then put them together. One thing I will say, the internet does not do the sound justice at all. I listened to the performances in the studio, and it's pristine. It's wonderful. You can hear all the tiny little nuances of the voice that you just don't get over the internet on Zoom call. So guys, we have the recordings, and I know Greg's got the video, the original, and you're really, really going to enjoy hearing.
I'm glad you said that, Todd. I wanted to say the same thing. I thought Todd must be
Dying.
You know, we've been teaching this way for 6 or 8 months. It's so hard, to try to coax students through a performance when it sounds tinny and awful, and you're in and out, and definitely not synced, which is
right.
crazy.
But good to let everybody know who's still with us. There will be a great recording to hear later, so it's worth checking out.
Definitely.
And Greg, I want to just say, Greg, a shout out to Greg, because Greg did so much work and learned so many things in order to pull this off. And so no slight to Greg on the sound issues or the syncing issues. I mean, let's just be clear, Greg has done an amazing job
True that.
pulling this off and putting this together. So thank you, Greg.
Thank you. There's always so much that can go wrong when you're working with technology. And
well, we had it in sync before.
Yeah.
That's weird. Everything was set to go, everything was fine, and then who knows, but we're going to try to work on it. And hopefully we won't be in the Zoom world forever, right?
Yeah.
But learning to work with Zoom is its own entity, and it does sort of what it wants.
I agree.
And you sort of have to adapt.
Yeah.
But for a good effort on the webinar for a first try, this is good. Webinars are worse than regular Zoom.
Good to know. Thanks.
Yeah.
More details to screw up.
Yeah.
Did the lack of the audience affect the performance in any way? I know normally in the chapel we'd have a lot of people in there, but we go to record and there's just like 2 of us in there. Did that affect your performances?
Oops.
It's okay. It's leave.
Julia?
Hear me?
Yeah, we can now.
There we go. All right. Yes, for sure. A lack of an audience definitely changes the dynamic and the experience for the performers, because we feed off the energy. There's a different kind of nervousness that happens when you have an audience versus when you don't. I find that without an audience, I can kind of feel myself sinking back into thinking technique, and a lot of what I would say staging becomes more of something I've done, like a habit, opposed to responding to, anyone in the audience. So it feels more rehearsed in terms of the performance. And then one thing that I have learned since all of this has happened is not doing regular live performing, even singing for recording, is sort of terrifying because nobody has actually heard me or sat in the same room as me to hear me just sing in months. So that adds a whole different weird layer to performing these days.
Yeah, interesting. I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. In live performance with an audience, you get feedback and the energy goes both ways. But with this, it was just kind of an output. So it was a little, and when you get feedback when you're performing, then you make decisions on the fly, vocally, emotionally, musically, that you might not without an audience. So it was a wonderful experience. It was great to sing these pieces and learn these pieces and rehearse these pieces and, collaborate with Sar. I mean, I'll do that all day long, every day. But yes, it was a different experience without the audience.
Let's see. We have knowing 3 of these fine performers. Is this minimalist work, all the rest, more challenging than say Mahler, Gustav or Mahler, or Bach with the fuller lines?
Good question. Equally, in different ways. Mahler may have more notes. Mahler has a different tonal structure. But either way, you're taking the text and setting it to music and making that work. And each composer is individual that way. So I'd say they're equally difficult.
And knowing who that question was from, I'll speak a little. He has a strong understanding of the Mahler family and the dynamic that went on there. I would actually say these pieces, I use my brain sort of more similarly to how I would work with Alma or Gustav Mahler, because they're setting poems, whereas with Bach it's mostly scripture texts. And so it's a very different way of approaching it. These feel much more personal, like the Mahler. They also seem more intimate. A lot of the Mahler stuff would have been sung in somebody's, salon recital. So this feels more similar to Mahler than to Bach for me.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And these weren't any easier than anything else I've ever.
Todd, this next question is
I'm competing with the Bible. I mean.
Todd, what's the best way you would say is to learn more about what you do as far as mixing and producing?
Yeah, I do get that question a lot. And we have a great course, a couple of them that we teach up at Moyne to get the basics down and understand the science of what we do. But this is one of those industries that really it's an apprenticeship. You really want to intern with the great studios and the great people that have done it. And that's where you learn all the tricks of the trade. It's one of those professions that's very difficult to learn in a book. You got to do it. And you have to do it a lot. You have to experience all the different environments, the electrical problems you run into. Even that evening, we had a situation where the HVAC, we heard this sound, and before we started, we tracked it down. You just got to go find out what these problems are. So there's a lot of little things that go into making great recordings and producing. And the best way is to hang with some old person that's done it, like 100,000 times. And then you start doing it on your own and you pick up tricks.
Surround yourself with the best and learn from that.
Yeah.
We have time for probably one or two more questions if anyone wants to ask anything else. Unlike iPhones now, you don't see ... to see if anyone's typing.
Well, while we're waiting, I would just like to thank you all for the performers and Greg and Todd for doing this. It was thrilling, and the audience for being here. It's so weird not seeing or hearing an audience.
I know.
It's so strange, but hopefully down the road you'll be able to come hear these live at the chapel with more new songs. That's our goal.
Yeah.
And we should be able to provide the link to what you heard tonight too.
Right. I think that'll be a really nice recording.
Anywhere, like YouTube, is this going to be on YouTube or somewhere where people can access easily?
Yeah, we're gonna work on the best way to share this all together so people can get it easily. But we'll figure that out, and we've got the list of RSVPs, so we can share it with everyone who is here tonight.
Okay, YouTube and Vimeo are good starts.
Yeah.
Great.
Agreed. Yeah.
We will check those out.
Especially
add my
Vimeo if
thank
you
you really
want to restrict who has access, but who can do what.
Right.
Thanks again, everyone. I thought your performances, Julia and Danan, I wanted to write you both an email before the concert after I heard your singing and the pristine recording that Todd accomplished. And I cried. It brought me to tears, both of you. Your voices are sublime. They're exquisite. And I want to say thank you so much. It's such an honor, really. And Sar, thank you for your playing. And Todd, thank you for your brilliant mastery of your profession.
And thanks to all of you for even putting this music together and creating it.
Well, thank you.
And to Greg, let's not forget Greg and all Greg's time and work.
Yeah. All right, so we have two final questions here, and then we're going to call it a night. We have a quick query on 12th century women. Hildegard's poetry and music, or Herod of Landsberg, who I am doing a play on?
Hildegard's awesome. That's what I have to say.
I don't know the other one, but Hildegard's awesome.
Feminist, brilliant, scientist, artist, mystic, composer. Hildegard is the bee's knees, as you might say. But what was the question?
That was, I think, asking about if we like Hildegard and Herod of Landsberg.
I don't know Herod of Landsberg. Maybe I should look up Herod of Landsberg.
I think Sar's going to say something. Oh, no.
Does anybody here know Herod of Landsberg?
I wish I did. I was just Googling.
Let's look it up. Let's learn something.
Yeah, we will.
Okay, this may take a minute.
In the meantime, we have a question asking, will there be more concerts like this one?
I think Greg and I are talking about doing more in the spring, and hope, this was a learning, curve, like and it looks like it's possible. We have some things to learn and to work on, and maybe trying a different format. We're not sure. But while we can't get together and do it in person, we've got to keep doing something.
Yeah. So there will be more.
Is the person asking about our stuff or Lemoyne's?
Lemoyne in general, I believe.
Concerts.
There's a comment about this concerts in this format. So yeah, maybe both. But I mean, ideally, as well as you mentioned before, this was meant to be a full concert performance. So you know, maybe when we're back in person, we'll do this all again with some more pieces.
I have a Herod of Landsberg thing that came up on the internet. So the real name in Latin was Herada Landsbergensis, circa 1150 to July 25th, 1195. She was 12th century Alsatian nun and abbess of Hohenberg Abbey in the Vosges Mountains.
I got to get to know this lady.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Sounds like she must have been pretty cool to be still remembered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's your takeaway information of the night. Homework.
There will be a quiz in a week.
Well,
Thanks for looking it up, Sar.
You
Yeah,
betcha.
Sar. Thank you, everybody who's still here for attending. Thank you to performers and to Beth and Ed and Todd. I hope everybody enjoyed tonight's performance and our question and answer session. As we said before, we're going to try to figure out a way and the best way to get this shareable with everyone. So be on the lookout from a notice from us soon.
And thanks to you, Greg. Heroic.
Greg!
Thank you.
Woo, woo, woo! Greg!
All right. I hope everyone has a good night.
Thanks, you too.
Take care.
Everybody, hang in there. See you soon.
And stay safe, everybody. And stay well.